Hello, fellow language teachers. My name is William Zulo, and I work as an English language teacher in the city of Montreal, Canada. Today I'll be presenting to you Getting Down to Business, teaching English idioms using a plurilingual pedagogy. Specifically, I'll be presenting a vocabulary task for English language teachers. The subject matter for this task are English idiomatic phrases for the workplace. The target student population are adult English additional language learners who are working professionals. And the student proficiency level should be about a Canadian language benchmark 7 in all competencies. The reason I designed this task was that my students lack opportunities to learn idiomatic phrases either at work or in their everyday lives. And for this reason, I thought it could be beneficial for teachers to have a task that could be used for students in a similar situation as mine. Now, you might be curious to know as to what a plurilingual pedagogy actually entails. Well, first, let me give you one definition of plurilingualism by Enrica Picardo. She describes plurilingualism as the idea of minimizing barriers between languages, of adopting a holistic vision, and of focusing on linguistic education in a broader sense, including all languages, L1, L2, L3, and so on, but also different varieties of the same language. So you can see here, we really want to engage the students' full linguistic repertoire in the classroom instead of it just being an English monolingual only space. Now, what are some of the benefits of a plurilingual pedagogy? Well, according to Pujol et al., plurilingual pedagogies create a safe and dynamic learning environment that encourages students to collaborate, support, and learn from another. It also encourages students to embrace their linguistic diversity and to cherish their cultural experiences. Now I'll describe the task preparation procedures. So teachers should select phrases that are appropriate for their students' proficiency level. And what I mean by that is that even though there may be many idioms that could be useful for your students, I recommend that you choose phrases which contain highly frequent vocabulary items, essentially within the most common 2,000 to 3,000 word families. Of course, you can include some items that are mid-frequency as well, between the next 3,000 to 9,000 word families. However, I would avoid phrases which contain low-frequency terms, above the 9,000 mark. This is important because idioms are not just single vocabulary items, but are multiple item units. Therefore, they're already difficult enough for your students to understand without having more advanced vocabulary than they can comprehend at this moment. This is very important. Another thing is that you should introduce fewer novel phrases within the first lesson. So let's say if you have a 1 hour lesson, I suggest you introduce no more than 5 to 10 new idiomatic phrases. Second, you're going to prepare a handout with written definitions of the phrases. This will become an item matching activity. Third, you'll prepare slips of paper which contain one idiom and one example phrase on each. Please prepare 2 sets of the example phrases. Feel free to pause the presentation here to take note of the sample idiomatic phrases that I've provided. These are just some you could use in your teaching task, but feel free to use ones that you deem more appropriate for your learners. In the next few slides, I'll be presenting the teaching instructions. So here's step 1. First, you'll present your chosen idioms on the board and identify key vocabulary for your students. And by key vocabulary, I mean words and not articles or prepositions in the phrases. Then, with the help of dictionaries, you'll have your students translate each key vocabulary into their dominant languages. This allows students to focus on the individual meaning of words. And we're on to step 2. So first you're going to pair your students and have them discuss their translations. Then you're going to ask for volunteers to write their translations on the board next to the English ones already listed. Then you're going to ask your students to highlight the similarities and differences in form, phonology, and meaning and use across the different languages. This provides an opportunity for your students to see new language forms as well as to share their linguistic knowledge. Moving on to step 3. Again, pair your students and ask them to look at the idioms and have them to try to figure out what they mean and how they are used. Then hand out the prepare worksheet with definitions. Students are then going to match the phrases to their respective definitions. You will correct the sheet as a class, then ask for volunteers to share similar expressions that they exist in their dominant languages. This step focuses on students learning the whole meaning of the phrases and again allows them to share their linguistic knowledge. Now for the final step of this activity. First, you will hand out the prepared slips of paper which contain one idiom and one example sentence of a different idiom. Then you'll ask your students to walk around the room to find their correct pair, and they will engage then in a brief conversation with their partner, attempting to incorporate both their own and their partner's idioms in the conversation. Then you will repeat this task, handing out new slips of paper which contain different idioms and example sentences. What's the benefit of this activity is that students get to practice their oral conversation skills and they get to see their idioms in multiple uses. And finally, I will present a homework activity. For this activity, students will write a short workplace-related dialogue involving two speakers and including at least one idiom of their choice. Students here will practice their written productive skills and again, they will get to practice using the idioms, which helps reinforce their learning. Alright, well that's everything for my presentation. If you're curious to learn more about the material I've discussed in this presentation, please feel free to look at the references listed here. Thank you for listening.